welcome to the deep dive. Okay, I want you to think about something for a second, something maybe a bit counterintuitive. What if the skills, the very ones that, shot you to the top in your tech field, what if they aren't the main things that make you succeed as a leader? It's a pretty big shift, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It really is. When you're like a top tier developer, your individual coding skill, your problem solving chops, that's your superpower,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
But stepping into R&D leadership, that whole game changes fundamentally.
And that's exactly what we're diving into today, this unique world, the R&D Leaders Playbook. We're going to try and unpack leadership, not as like some fuzzy soft skill, but as a really critical new tech stack. A
Yeah.
tech stack for managing what's maybe the most complex system there is.
Yeah.
A team of really smart researchers. So our mission here is to pull out the core ideas, the real insights for, inspiring, guiding, and growing these high-performing research teams. Let's jump in.
Yeah, and that core paradox you mentioned, that's really central to this whole thing. As an individual contributor, your focus was deep, often kind of solitary, problem solving, mastering the code. But as an R&D leader, your job, it's just not about being the best coder or problem solver in the room anymore. It's really about architecting the environment where everyone else can do their best, most innovative work. You shift from like building components to being the system architect.
That sounds like a really profound change. So what are the specific challenges? What makes leading R&D teams so different, maybe compared to, say, other tech leadership roles?
Well, R&D, just by its nature, it deals with really unstructured tasks, right?
Yeah.
And a very high level of uncertainty. You're often, exploring completely new territory, probing the unknown. And then on top of that, there's this constant delicate balance you have to strike. You need to foster that long-term, maybe groundbreaking innovation. But you also have to meet near-term business goals. It's a real tightrope walk, constantly looking ahead, but also watching your feet.
Okay, so that tightrope walk. How does this playbook suggest we actually manage that? What are the big pillars for modern R&D leadership?
So the playbook kind of breaks down the leader's job into three core actionable pillars, makes it manageable. First is inspire. This is all about creating and crucially communicating a compelling technical vision, something that gives purpose, gets the team fired up. Second, guide. This gets into the nuts and bolts, architecting the systems, the processes, the cultural norms, the stuff that enables good execution and innovation. And finally, grow. This is about your role as a talent developer, investing in your people, building a strong, cohesive team.
Right, that makes sense. And it feels natural that before you inspire or guide others, you've got to start with yourself. So let's dive into part one, the foundational mindset, like cultivating your own internal operating system. What's the playbook say about building that personal foundation?
Yeah, it really hammers this point home. Effective leadership, it starts with mastering your own internal operating system, as you put it. It's about developing those core principles, that emotional intelligence that lets you lead with, authenticity and real impact.
Okay, so what are these core principles, the ones that make up this R&D leadership compass?
Okay, first up, integrity and accountability. Now, in R&D, this means real intellectual honesty, like being genuinely willing to say, okay, that hypothesis was wrong, or that experiment didn't work out. It's not about blaming people. It's about taking ownership of the outcomes, good or bad, and seeing every setback as like a chance to learn. This builds that deep trust you absolutely need for the team to take those bold risks that innovation requires. Without that trust, people just play it safe.
That trust sounds non-negotiable, yeah.
Yeah.
For pushing boundaries. What's the next principle?
A pervasive growth mindset. Think about Satya Nadella at Microsoft, that shift from know-it-all to learn-it-all. It's that belief that potential isn't fixed, it can be developed. It's about embracing challenges, sticking with things when they get tough, and seeing failure not as, the end of the road, but as really valuable data, something to learn from. For an R&D leader, this isn't just nice to have. It's like a cultural must-have, especially with tech changing so fast. You've got to keep learning.
And the third one, an R&D leader needs to cultivate strategic and long-term thinking. What does that actually look like day to day?
It means you're kind of operating at the intersection of today's pressures and tomorrow's possibilities. R&D leaders, they need that foresight, right? To anticipate where tech is going, what the market might need next, not just reacting. This kind of strategic view ensures that what the team is doing day to day actually lines up with the bigger picture, the company's vision, driving sustainable growth, not just, hitting the next quarterly target. It's asking, where do we need to be in 5 years, and how does this research project help get us there?
Okay, these principles, they sound like a really solid internal OS. But how do you connect that, internal stuff with the outside world, with your team? Which brings us to emotional intelligence, EQ. The playbook calls it the leader's API. I really like that analogy.
Yeah, it's a good one, isn't it? Because if your technical skill is like the core logic, the architecture, then EQ is the API. It's how you connect to, understand, and influence the complex human systems all around you. Especially in a technical place full of high IQ folks, EQ acts like a force multiplier. It's definitely not some soft skill you can skip. It's fundamental. It unlocks the team's collective potential.
So if EQ is an API, what are its main functions? The 5 core components.
Right. The 5 components are self-awareness, basically knowing your own emotions and how they affect you and others, self-regulation, managing your impulses, staying cool under pressure, motivation, that inner drive, pushing for meaningful goals, empathy, understanding, really feeling what others are going through, and social skills, building relationships, communicating clearly, handling conflicts well.
What I find really interesting is this idea that your own emotions, like maybe feeling constantly frustrated, could actually be a signal, a data point pointing to bigger issues. Can you unpack that a bit?
Yeah, this is where EQ gets really powerful as a diagnostic tool. So imagine you're the leader and you just keep feeling frustrated because projects are always slipping, right? Instead of just thinking, look, I'm failing or this team isn't delivering. An emotionally intelligent leader uses that frustration as like a check engine light. They ask, okay, why are we consistently missing deadlines? And maybe digging into that uncovers, I don't know, unclear requirements, or maybe scope creep, or maybe people aren't speaking up about problems early because they don't feel safe. So you're feeling your frustration. It's not just personal baggage. It becomes this critical signal pointing to a systemic problem, process, communication, resources that needs fixing.
That's a really smart way to look at it. Okay, so you worked on your internal OS. The next big piece is how you transmit all that outwards, right? Which leads us to part 2, the communication protocol. For technical leaders, communication isn't just like sending emails, is it? It seems way more fundamental.
Oh, absolutely. It is the mechanism. It's how you share the vision, how you get everyone aligned, how you sort out conflicts, how you actually drive action. It's about building this versatile toolkit for creating shared understanding and getting things done together, making sure those brilliant technical ideas don't just stay stuck in someone's head.
So what skills make up this full spectrum communicator in an R&D setting? Where does it start?
It really starts with active listening. And this is like way more than just not talking while someone else is. It's about really trying to understand the speaker's actual intent, the emotions behind the words, maybe the things they aren't saying, using techniques like clarifying questions. Okay, so if I'm hearing you right, you're worried about the scalability here because of how it hits the database. I'm paraphrasing. So what I think you're saying is that kind of thing. It's not just about getting facts right. It builds trust, empathy, makes people feel heard.
And I imagine in today's world, with teams spread out, working asynchronously, that persuasive technical writing becomes even more critical.
Totally critical, non-negotiable, really.
Yeah.
Clarity and precision in your docs, your emails, your proposals, you just have to nail it. Any ambiguity, that's where things go wrong. It leads to confusion, wasted time, people working on slightly different things. For an R&D leader, clear, concise documentation of, say, complex technical decisions isn't just for now, it's for the long haul, for alignment and for keeping that knowledge accessible.
And then there's the speaking part, delivering compelling presentations. How do you avoid just, dumping data on people?
It's all about the narrative, weaving a story. So often, technical talks just lead with the data, the details. The key is connecting those technical bits to the bigger picture, the larger purpose. Why does this algorithm matter to the business? How will this research impact the customer? That's what sticks. That's what gets people, especially non-technical folks, to buy in.
Right, which brings us to that crucial skill, translating genius for different stakeholders. What's the biggest mistake tech experts make when talking to, say, the finance or marketing teams?
Yeah, the classic mistake is leading with the how, diving straight into the cool implementation details, the algorithms, the tech stack. But non-technical audiences, they mostly care about the why, the benefits, the outcomes, the business impact, what's in it for them or for the company. So every conversation needs to be framed around, okay, how does this technical work solve a business problem? Or make the customer's life better? Or make us more efficient?
I love that example the playbook gives about using analogies. Like, instead of just saying, we cut query time by 35%, saying something like, imagine your morning commute went from 40 minutes down to 25. That's the kind of speed boost we just gave our customer data workflow. Makes it instantly graspable.
Exactly. It creates this mental shortcut that anyone can understand, and importantly, they can repeat it. When your stakeholders can easily explain your idea using your analogy, they basically become your champions, even when you're not there. And, don't forget, visuals trump text often. Simple diagrams, infographics, they can convey complex stuff way faster than a wall of text.
And it's not just what you say, but tailoring it, right? Knowing your audience.
Precisely. Your CFO. They're thinking ROI, cost savings. The CMO. They want to know about market differentiation, how this helps the brand. The CEO. Strategic alignment, long-term advantage. An effective R&D leader learns to speak the language of each audience, hitting their specific priorities.
Okay, but communication isn't always smooth sailing. It also means handling the tough stuff, feedback, conflict. How do you architect those difficult conversations so they're actually productive?
Yeah, this is key. For giving constructive feedback, first off, prepare. This shouldn't be off the cuff. Do it privately. And definitely avoid the feedback sandwich, praise, criticism, praise. It just confuses things. Be specific. Focus on behavior you observed, not on personality traits. And make it actionable. What can they do differently? The SBI framework situation, behavior impact, is really good for this. In yesterday's code review situation, when you dismissed Naveen's suggestion without discussing behavior, it seemed to shut down the conversation, and we might have missed a valuable idea impact.
And the playbook talks about more advanced models too, like radical candor. Why is that one considered so powerful, especially for R&D?
Radical candor is often called the gold standard because it hits this sweet spot. Caring personally and challenging directly. It's the opposite of, say, ruinous empathy, where you care but don't challenge, so people don't improve, or obnoxious aggression, where you challenge but clearly don't care. In R&D, you need rigorous debate. Think code reviews, challenging scientific assumptions that happens daily. Radical candor lets you have those direct, honest, technical discussions without things getting personal. It speeds up learning, correction, finding the best approach.
Okay, and what about nonviolent communication, NVC? How does that fit in? Sounds like it's more for de-escalating conflicts.
NVC is incredibly powerful for turning those really emotionally charged moments into chances for mutual understanding. It uses four-step process. State objective observations, just the facts, what you saw or heard, no judgment. Express your feelings, your emotional state, like, I feel concerned. Articulate your underlying needs. These are universal human needs: respect, understanding, contribution, safety. And then make a clear request, something concrete and actionable. The real magic of NVC is how it shifts focus from blame and "you did this wrong" to shared human needs. When you talk about your needs, people can often relate, even if they disagreed with your initial point. It opens up a path to finding solutions together, even when things started out pretty tense.
So it sounds like SBI, radical candor, NVC, they're not interchangeable. They're different tools for different jobs.
Exactly right. Think of it like a diagnostic toolkit. SBI is great for that specific behavioral feedback in the moment. The STAR method situation, task, action, result, that's excellent for performance reviews or interviews, getting concrete examples of past behavior. Radical candor is more about building an ongoing culture of open, honest feedback. And NVC is your go-to for de-escalating conflict, finding common ground by focusing on those underlying needs. A good leader learns to read the situation and pick the right tool.
Okay, last point on communication. R&D lives on debate, right?
Yeah.
Challenging ideas. How do leaders facilitate those technical debates so they actually lead somewhere good, not just endless arguments?
Yeah, that's crucial. Rigorous debate isn't dysfunction. It's how you forge better ideas in R&D. The leader's job is to make it productive. First, set clear ground rules, like arguments need technical reasoning, not just opinions, no personal attacks, ever, and maybe discourage people from making absolute statements, keep things open.
And the leader needs to be more than just a referee, right?
Yeah.
An active facilitator.
Precisely. Keep the discussion laser-focused on the technical problem we're trying to solve. Make sure everyone participates. That was a huge finding from Google's Project Aristotle Equal Participation Matters. So draw out the quieter folks. Maybe gently guide the conversation if one person is dominating, and reframe comments sometimes. Focus on the technical substance, like asking, what are the trade-offs of that architectural choice, instead of, why would you do that? Clarify points if needed.
And importantly, after all that back and forth, you need to bring closure.
Absolutely essential. Don't leave things hanging. The leader needs to clearly summarize the main points that were made, state the decision or the agreed next steps, and this is key, connect that outcome back to the team's goals. That clarity lets everyone move forward together.
Wow, okay, that's a masterclass in communication right there. Let's shift gears now to part 3, inspiring the mission. This feels like it's about taking that high-level vision and making it real, making it drive action. How does an R&D leader actually craft and communicate a technical vision that genuinely compels people?
Right. So a technical vision, it's not just some fluffy mission statement you hang on the wall. It's got to be a clear, technically grounded picture of a future state. It provides that essential why behind the team's day-to-day grind. It's the North Star guiding decisions.
And the playbook actually breaks down how to create and share this vision.
It does. First, you really need to understand the broader landscape. Where does the business want to go? What do customers actually need? What are our team's unique strengths? Second, and this is important, assemble a collaborative vision team. This isn't something the leader just cooks up alone in their office. Get key people involved. Third, you actually draft the vision. Ask the tough questions. How should our system evolve? What big technical challenges will we tackle? What new tech should we be looking at? And fourth, and you can't overstate this, communicate relentlessly.
Communicate relentlessly. That sounds intense. It makes more than just like one big presentation, right? How do you make it actually stick?
Yeah, it's got to become part of the team's fabric, their DNA. Use every channel you've got. Team meetings, quick chats, visuals, internal docs, whatever works. But the most critical part, constantly connect it to daily work. Show people how that feature they're building, that bug they're squashing, that experiment they're running, how it all ties back to achieving that bigger vision. Remember Google's Project Aristotle. That sense of meaning and impact was a huge driver for effective teams. People need to see how their work matters. And of course, the leader has to lead by example. Your actions, your priorities, they have to scream that you believe in this vision too.
Speaking of Project Aristotle again, it also highlighted psychological safety as maybe the most important factor for high-performing teams. The playbook calls it the engine of innovation. What exactly is psychological safety and why is it so incredibly vital for R&D?
Okay, so psychological safety is basically that shared belief within the team that it's okay to take interpersonal risks. It means you feel safe enough to admit you made a mistake, or ask a question that might sound dumb, or challenge an idea, even the boss's idea, without fearing you'll be embarrassed, punished, or shut down. For R&D, it's not just nice, it's absolutely fundamental, the prerequisite for any real innovation. Because think about it, R&D guarantees missteps. Experiments fail. That's the nature of the beast. If people don't feel safe, they'll hide those failures. They'll avoid taking risks. They'll tell you what they think you want to hear. And that fear, that's the absolute killer of innovation.
Okay, so if it's that critical, how does a leader actively build it? What are the practical steps? What's the playbook say?
There are concrete things you can do. First, framework as a learning problem, not just execution. Acknowledge the uncertainty up front. We're exploring here, we expect some bumps. Second, leaders need to model vulnerability and fallibility themselves. Be the first to say, oops, I got that wrong, or you know what, I don't know the answer. Let's figure it out together. Third, actively encourage open discussion of failures. Run blameless postmortems. Focus on what happened and why, not who messed up. Fourth, promote inclusive communication. Make sure everyone's voice is heard. Actively solicit input from quieter team members. And finally, just show genuine interest and empathy. Care about your team members as people, not just as resources.
The playbook even mentions a structured approach, Timothy R. Clark's four-stage model. How does that help guide a leader in building safety?
Yeah, it's a helpful way to think about it progressing in stages. It starts with inclusion, safety people just feeling like they belong, they're accepted on the team. Then comes learner safety, feeling safe to ask questions, experiment, make mistakes without being punished. Next is contributor safety, feeling safe to actually use your skills, make a meaningful contribution, have an impact. And the highest level is challenger safety, feeling safe enough to question the status quo, suggest improvements, challenge assumptions, even if it's uncomfortable. And for each stage, Clark outlines specific things leaders can do, like actively welcoming newcomers for inclusion safety, or responding constructively to challenges for challenger safety. It gives you a roadmap.
This sounds great, but R&D leaders are always dealing with that tension, right? Between giving teams the freedom to innovate and making sure they're aligned with the strategy. That central paradox. How do you manage that balancing act?
Yeah, that is the central paradox, isn't it? Too much control crushes creativity. Too much freedom can lead to, science projects that go nowhere useful for the business. The key seems to be granting autonomy with guardrails. What that means is the leader defines the what and the why, the goal, the objective, why it matters. But you give the team as much freedom as possible on the how.
So like Google's 20% time or internal hack weeks, are those examples of this?
Exactly. Those are ways to balance focus and exploration. Give people space to tinker, but within a broader context. Another really powerful tool here is using OKR's objectives and key results. They set clear, measurable goals, providing direction without the leader having to dictate every step. It allows for autonomy within that defined strategic framework. You also have to actively foster an innovation culture. That means genuinely celebrating learning from failures, not just successes, promoting continuous learning, and recognizing and rewarding the effort of innovation, even if the specific project didn't pan out as hoped.
So the real insight here isn't about choosing one or the other, freedom or structure, but somehow moving beyond that trade-off.
That's exactly the point. When you have a really clear, compelling vision that the whole team buys into, and you've built that foundation of high trust and psychological safety, teams tend to become intrinsically motivated. They start to self-organize pretty effectively toward the right goals. So the leader's focus shifts. It's less about how much freedom do I give, and more about how clear is our vision, how strong is our trust and safety. When those fundamentals are rock solid, you can actually grant maximum autonomy because you trust the team to use it wisely.
That's a really powerful way to reframe it. Okay, let's move into our final section, part 4, the production level playbook. This sounds like the really practical, hands-on stuff about actually growing and keeping a world-class research team following that talent lifecycle idea.
Right. We're getting into the operational side now. It starts with phase 1, assembling the team. And this means getting way more specific than just, we need a smart scientist. You need to precisely define the technical skills you need, sure, but also the cultural attributes. What kind of mindset, what working style will really thrive here? You might even map it out, like with a skill set matrix, to see exactly where your gaps are.
And finding those top people, especially the ones who aren't actively looking, requires proactive sourcing.
Right. Oh yeah, passive candidates are often the best. So proactive sourcing is key. That means leveraging LinkedIn effectively, going to conferences, using your network for referrals, sometimes even bringing in specialized recruiters for those really hard-to-fill niche roles. Then for interviewing, really lean into competency-based interviewing. Use behavioral questions like the STAR method we mentioned. Tell me about a time when. Get concrete examples of past actions. And think about culture add, not just culture fit. How does this person bring something new, a different perspective that strengthens the team? A great question for this is something like, tell me about a significant disagreement you had with a teammate. How did you work through it? What happened?
Okay, you've hired someone great. Now comes phase 2, activating talent, the onboarding. Those first 90 days feel absolutely make or break.
They really are. A good, structured onboarding process makes a massive difference for retention, for productivity, for everything. You can't just throw people in the deep end. So, have a plan. Pre-boarding helps sending info before day 1. Week 1 should be about immersion, introductions, understanding the vision and culture, maybe pairing them with an onboarding buddy. The first 30 days, focus on learning. Give them a structured plan, maybe some low-risk tasks so they can get some early wins. Then, days 30 to 90, gradually ramp up their contributions with really clear expectations. And throughout, have clear documentation ready, like a lab expectations, guide structure training, and dedicated mentorship right from the start.
Which leads nicely into phase 3, developing mastery. This is the ongoing mentorship, the coaching. It sounds like the leader's core responsibility here is growing people.
It absolutely is. You're not just managing tasks. You're developing the next generation of experts and leaders. A good mentor in R&D, they guide the whole professional journey. Not just the technical stuff, but also ethics, communication skills, how to navigate their career path, best practices. Set clear expectations for the mentorship. Encourage independence. Don't just give answers. Check for understanding. Be empathetic. This phase also means working with team members on individual development plans, IDPs, collaboratively setting specific, measurable goals for their growth, and using delegation strategically, not just to offload work, but as a development tool, giving people stretch assignments to build new skills and take on more responsibility.
Okay, and the final phase, phase 4. Sustaining high performance. You've built this amazing team. How do you keep them engaged, growing, and performing over the long haul?
A big piece of this is designing clear career progression. People need to see a path forward. That means well-defined career ladders, outlining the different levels of seniority, what skills, responsibilities, and impact are expected at each stage. And critically important in R&D is having dual career ladders. Separate, equally valued paths for individual contributors, ICs, and managers. This lets you keep your top technical experts who love the science and don't necessarily want to manage people. So you might have roles like research scientists, senior scientists, principal scientists, and then maybe it forks into staff scientist on the IC track and research manager on the management track, each with clear expectations.
And beyond the structure, that positive, resilient culture seems key.
It's absolutely vital. You have to consciously foster collaboration, break down silos, actively promote well-being and a work-life balance. Burnout is a huge risk in R&D. You have to acknowledge it and guard against it, and make sure you have consistent recognition and celebration. Acknowledge effort, acknowledge learning from failures, celebrate breakthroughs, reinforce the positive behaviors you want to see.
What about performance management itself? How do you do effective performance management in a field like R&D where outcomes can be uncertain?
It needs to be continuous, not just a once-a-year thing. Regular continuous check-ins, like weekly or biweekly one-on-ones, are essential. You also need clear metrics and KPIs. Even in R&D, they might be different things like hitting project milestones, publication rates, patent filings, maybe demonstrating the impact of the research on a product. And definitely use 360-degree feedback. Getting input from peers, direct reports, maybe key stakeholders gives a much more rounded picture than just the manager's view.
This has been incredibly insightful, a really thorough walkthrough of the R&D Leader's Playbook. Thanks so much for breaking it all down with such practical strategies.
My pleasure. It's definitely a challenging field of leadership, but incredibly rewarding too. Hopefully this gives folks a solid framework to think about.
Absolutely. And as we wrap up this deep dive, here's maybe one final thought to leave you with, this journey, becoming an effective R&D leader. It's not like you follow steps 1, 2, 3 and you're done.
Yeah.
It's not linear. It's much more like, well, like research itself. It's a continuous iterative process. Learning, adapting, tweaking, refining. So maybe think about approaching your own leadership development with that same rigor you bring to your technical work. Treat your leadership style like a product that's never truly finished. You're always looking for ways to improve it.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And to really kick off that iteration, that improvement cycle, you absolutely need feedback, a robust feedback loop. That means actively and maybe humbly asking for feedback on how you're doing from your team, from your peers, from your own boss, and creating an environment where your team actually feels safe enough to give you that candid, honest input, even when it's tough to hear.
Right. And then armed with that feedback, you need to actually reflect on it. Learn from the mistakes, figure out what worked, what didn't, and keep refining your approach. Just like you'd refactor code or iterate on a machine learning model, you iterate on your leadership. So here's maybe a little challenge for this week. Pick just one single practice we talked about today, just one. Maybe it's consciously modeling vulnerability in your next team meeting. Maybe it's trying the SBI framework for a piece of feedback. Maybe it's just taking that first step to clarify your team's technical vision. Just pick one thing and commit to trying it, because that's how real growth, real improvement actually starts.